Hello again, rabid internet fan base. Welcome back, everybody, to the Hemingway Land YouTube channel for this special presentation, the unveiling of the new website. Yes, people, the thing I've been promising for a few years now and complaining about significantly for the past few months is finally here. Hemingway Land 2.0, an upgraded online presence which will hopefully add greater legitimacy to the business so people stop calling and asking, how do I know this isn't a scam? More to the point, for those people who aren't complete jerks, we're hoping that the new website will help facilitate more sales, convert potential buyers faster, and in turn allow us to expand the range of offerings we have into more larger dollar properties in more states. This, of course, will allow us to offer even greater selection to you guys and to all of those who come after. I will tell you guys that the new site has been a long time coming. As I believe I mentioned in last week's video, a more sophisticated online presence is something that's been on my checklist for a number of years now. We started the business in 2017, and there was always a handful of things that had to happen first before I could begin to put aside money for something like this. That didn't start to happen, that allocation of funds, until around the end of 2020. And then by the end of 2021, once I had finally accumulated the amount that I felt this was going to take, we hired the firm that ultimately ended up producing the site that you see here today. But during that long period, I was constantly making notes to myself about everything that I wanted to improve in the site, not just from an aesthetic standpoint, mind you, but also, quite frankly, from answering the phones for 6 years. It teaches you all the things the average person gets hung up on or can't figure out. And perhaps even more valuable, it teaches you all the things that confuse the easily confuse. I will confess that when we first started the business, I had no idea what it would grow into, and I had little sense of who the average buyer was, what they wanted, what information was important to them, etc. Additionally, having no idea how the average person would navigate the site or absorb information, I designed something that seemed intuitive to me, but which quickly became apparent was not intuitive to others. So over the years, we were constantly tweaking the presentation of the listings and the information contained within them to help explain things to buyers, help answer those questions we knew people would have, and basically just trying our best to shoehorn as much information to the site and into the listings as possible. And yet, based on the calls we've received over the years, while we may have been presenting all that information, the old design clearly limited us in how people navigated and absorbed that, or even, honestly, a fraction of that information. So, the point being, I was constantly making notes on how I wanted to improve the thing, and that is why I am so happy that this day has finally come. So, without further ado, let me begin our tour. Starting off, as you can see from the homepage here, we retained the Monument Valley backdrop, but with a newer and bolder image. This, of course, is the most iconic of your American West visuals, and I think has always kind of perfectly embodied the spirit of the West and the spirit of what buying your own property can mean to people. We then also made the menu of listings per state easier to locate and ultimately easier to select. And, of course, each of these state icons pictured here not only allows you to bring up all the listings from that specific region, but also, here comes a pretentious word, transports you as the viewer to what I believe is the state of mind that each of these regions evokes. We got a new tagline here on the website, which you'll see us use in our branding moving forward, and that is "Own Your Horizon." And this sentiment comes from talking to all our buyers over the years, or many of them anyway, who really do seem to view land ownership as a sort of first step to freedom. Owning their own land is akin for many of these people to owning their own destiny, and so we believe the "Own Your Horizon" tag is something that evokes or speaks to that sentiment in everyone, both who has purchased from us and who will be purchasing from us in the future. Anyway, as we scroll down the homepage, you'll see we've got this featured properties section. This, of course, will be used to highlight properties we think are really worth taking a look at. There have been occasions, particularly when we've got a bunch of listings in one county, cough, cough, Valencia, when some really nice properties, I feel, get lost to people, simply because I've become a pretty good judge of knowing what will appeal to our buyers, and occasionally we get caught off guard by listings that hang around on the site way too long, and normally I feel that's because they're simply not being seen. So we're hoping that the featured property section here will go a long way toward getting those really desirable lots in front of as many of your eyes as possible. Next up, as you scroll down the page, you'll notice we've also got sections of the homepage dedicated to some of the key information pages on the site, such as this one here with the bison, which will hopefully direct more people to the parts of the website that go into more detail about the buying process. People calling and asking us how the buying process works and asking us to explain it on a sort of step-by-step basis is probably the most consistent, legitimate question we get. And despite the fact that this information was always being explained on the site and on the listing pages, it's clear that there were far too few people who realized that. Point being, here on the home page, we're making it easier to find information like that, as well as our FAQ section, which has up until this point been both very detailed and also very ignored. So hopefully by making pages like this easier to find, part of the homepage navigation, it will help to answer people's questions more easily. In addition, guys, we also expanded upon the Selling to Us page on the site. I'll show you that in a minute, but it's one I hadn't rewritten in a long time, and the longer the business goes on, the more unsolicited offers we get to buy land from people. So this page will help answer a lot of their questions, as well as ultimately submit information about their property, or more specifically, the kind of information we need to make an informed decision about buying. And finally, each page ends with plugs for the YouTube channel and the weekly email blast. We've got a ton of subscribers and followers on both, but of course we're always looking to expand upon those numbers, reach more people, particularly because YouTube is free advertising. And that was something that was never on my mind when we were creating the original site. I never knew I was going to do videos like this, and thus we've made it more prominent on this one because it has become so important for our business and so important for getting these properties seen. Next up. So the state listing pages are probably the second most visited pages on the website. And for those, we made some upgrades, such as including this new search function right here, a state map, where you can select properties by region of the state. To be clear, guys, you don't have to use this. If you choose not to use this, the results in the states will still appear in alphabetical order by county. But if you're looking at narrow search results and you know the region of the state that interests you most, you can use this map tool for more relevant properties. So for instance, if you're being relocated for a job to Northeast New Mexico, you can click the Northeast part of the state and see all the results we have in this collection of counties. And to be clear, people, I know many of you will ask if you can filter search results by acres or price or features that a property has, but I gotta tell you, based on my experience talking to people on the phone over the past few years, that's something that I believe works better in theory than in practice, especially if you try to get into features of a property like HOA versus no HOA, or zoning versus no zoning, or can I RV on this property versus can I not. In my experience, there's too many things that don't result in a yes or no answer. There's always nuance, and that nuance kind of prohibits us from easily categorizing properties as one thing. So for now, the available listings can only be searched by region of the state, but that's a way that I feel is ultimately the best way to search for these sorts of things. Next up, guys, do want to point out that the new listing presentation will be stacked top to bottom as opposed to 3 in a row. 3 in a row was always a problem when 2 would sell and the third would stick around a few months. It always caused people to think we weren't updating the site regularly, when in fact 3 to a row just always looked better. So we've solved that problem by stacking them like this, and by making the information larger, pictures easier to see, details easier to read, and overall more pleasing to the eye and easier to navigate. Finally, guys, on these pages, I do want to point out, if we come up here to the map and click on the central region of the state, for instance, it'll bring up all the listings in these 5 counties: Bernalillo, Sandoval, Santa Fe, Torrance, and Valencia. And if we scroll down to the Valencia listings, you'll notice that when we have a bunch of properties in one subdivision, as we have out here in Rio Grande Estates, the master information page on that region will be colored differently than the rest of the standard listings, and hence easier to find and easier to identify as the place to start your reading and research. As regular visitors to the site will know, we don't do this with every subdivision, but there are certain places where we buy so many properties and the questions we get are all basically the same, that we create these master information pages to help better answer those questions and allow buyers to better differentiate the lots and figure out which works best for them. These pages will be programmed to disappear when we're out of inventory in these regions, but otherwise, when we do have land here, they will be prominently displayed. Next up, so the property-specific listing pages are the things we spent the most time on, because obviously it's where the most information needs to be presented in the most efficient way possible. So, starting off at the top of the page, you'll notice we've got, of course, the headline, and then we've got these 4 blocks here meant to communicate the most fundamental aspects of the property. Additionally, for the first time now, we've got the reference number prominently displayed, which hopefully means people will use it when they call us to reference a property. Previously, that have been a major hang-up in conversations, with the first minute always spent trying to figure out which lot the person was talking about. Now, hopefully, that won't be a thing. Additionally, guys, like the old site, we've got a major chunk of real estate up top reserved for video content. I will have you guys know that as we transition from the old site, we will not be using about 99% of those videos. So for now, a lot of these listings will simply have a photo, but as time goes on, it'll be a space reserved for video content, and not just one video, but we have the option to upload multiples you can toggle through. So for instance, in some regions, we have been known to include additional insights, for instance, driving directions videos. Those will now be found up here. Next up, and this is a big favorite of mine, the Buy Now buttons. As I mentioned earlier, questions about the buying process, questions about the contract, questions about financing, these were always the things people inquired about most. And while the information was always written on the site or written on the listing page, it frequently went unnoticed by all but the most observant. Now, however, when you click the Buy Now button, you will be presented with, oh my God, look at this, people, all the information you would ever need to know to understand this process, including the fact the $500 is merely a deposit. Here are the ways you can pay us the rest. If you elect to pay us this way, we provide you with X. If you elect to pay us that way, we provide you with Y. Here's the copy of the contract you'll be asked to sign. The deposit is non-refundable. And finally, as you'll see in this tab up here, there is no financing offered. And we've got about 4 different templates of information that will be presented to people, depending on what the price of the property is they're purchasing. But overall, this block of text should answer 99.999%, if not more, of the typical questions we get about this process. And then, in addition, for anyone who does have more questions about how it works, we've got these helpful links right here, which will direct you to other parts of the website, which will go into even greater detail. We're big on details here at Hemingway Land, people. And additionally, let me say this, on a property where financing is offered, such as this one, you will see a second Buy Now button, which will indicate the amount due today. So instead of the entire purchase price like this button shows, this one merely displays the down payment and the amount due today. And then, of course, when you click that button, it will take you to the same payment information window, but it'll be queued up to the Financing tab, which, aside from explaining the terms and the process, will also present you a copy of the land contract you will be asked to sign. Finally, and let me just show you this, if you X out of this, you'll notice there's a Learn More button right here, which, if clicked, brings up the exact same window of information. And I know many of you are thinking, hey, Hemingway, from a design perspective, that seems a little redundant, doesn't it? Well, here's the thing, people. This button is here specifically for all those individuals who don't like clicking Buy Now because they think it means they've automatically made the purchase, even though they've entered no personal or payment information. Yes, there's a lot of those people out there, and this button has been designed specifically for them. Next up, as we scroll down the page, you will notice, and this may seem minor, but we have this bar of information here. This page will break down into sections of information, and by clicking the section headers here, the page will zoom scroll you to that section. So if you're more interested in maps than anything else, you can scroll the old-fashioned way, or you can simply click here and be automatically directed there. This feature, by the way, was designed specifically for all those people who call me insisting there's no photo gallery on the page. I tell them it's at the bottom and they need to scroll down. They claim they have and still don't see it. And then after arguing with me for 10 minutes that the page has no photos, do they only reluctantly admit later they found the photos. Now hopefully that problem is solved. Next up, guys, as we continue on down the page, we'll come to the property details section. One of the problems we had on the old website was that a lot of information was being presented, but it was kind of being repeated twice on the same page. First would be the write-up at the top with all the links. Then there would be the table of information halfway down the page, which for the most part either repeated the same information or added to it, but not in a way that you might understand A up top relates to B down at the bottom. The new website, however, has remedied this problem by collecting all the information in this one area and segregating it into these helpful tabs. So, for instance, we've got tabs dedicated to the basic location and size information, legal information, access and utilities, zoning and restrictions, title info, a collection of helpful links, and finally, miscellaneous, having to do with whatever information we have on the property that didn't make sense in the previous tabs. And if you go through these guys, you will notice that we have expanded on the information that was previously being presented to help answer additional questions we get a lot about things like liens and mineral rights, surveys, and so on. Whatever the case, I believe this is a better way to concentrate all this information into one section while making it easier to absorb. Now, as we continue down the page, you will see the next section presents us with a ton of information about maps and boundaries. On the old website, and this was admittedly a flaw of the original design, you had to know that the GPS coordinates halfway down the page were hyperlinked to a map, and if you clicked them, the map would appear in a separate window, and nobody ever figured that out. Now, however, we've got map information presented down here with plats, the Google Earth overlays, and drone overlays, both of which will present you with a photo gallery you can click through, and finally, an interactive Google map. And it should be noted, guys, that while the listing I'm showing you here doesn't have it, there will be an additional MapRight mapping tab, which will also present you with an interactive map 1, where the parcel boundaries are highlighted. Scrolling now further down the page, we have the Towns and Attractions tab. You know, guys, one of the things I learned early on in selling land was that people always wanted to know where's the nearest town, do they have a Walmart, what else is there, essentially, how far from civilization will I be if I buy this property? And as time went on, we'd get more photos of nearby towns and nearby attractions, but when we included them in the photo gallery, some people became confused about which photos are from the property and which photos are from the town, and why are you showing me the town when I only want to buy the property, so on and so forth. Point being, it created a lot of confusion. Now, however, check this out, people. We have all of these local towns and attractions photos included in this gallery, separate and apart from the property photos, which, when we scroll down, you will see have all been helpfully curated here at the bottom of the page. And as with the previous site, you can click on any of these to view them in a larger window. Additionally, of course, we also broke away from the previous format of the grid, which frankly was getting a little boring for me, and we have everything displayed in a more, quote, dynamic presentation. And finally, guys, down here at the bottom of the page, we have all the purchasing information reiterated once more. Moving on. So, as noted earlier, guys, if you're looking for land in one of the handful of subdivisions we buy hundreds of properties in each year, those subdivision master information pages will be prominently displayed in their respective counties, such as this one you see here in Valencia County. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that these cards will display the price and acreage range of our current inventory, as well as the number of properties we have in this particular subdivision. These figures will update in real time as properties are listed and sold, and as noted earlier, once the region is sold out, this card will disappear from the state listing pages, obviously much different than how we've been doing it. Now, if you click on these, you'll see that we redesigned these subdivision pages so as their connection to the individual listings could be a lot more intuitive and easier to navigate. So, first off, you'll notice we've got these blocks up here. These two will indicate the price and acreage range of our current inventory and will update in real time. In addition, plenty of space here for one or multiple videos about the subdivision. Now, as we scroll down the page, you'll again notice this bar with zoom scrolling functions, which can direct you to any part of the information page that interests you most, whether that be the subdivision details, or the FAQ, or the photo gallery. Now, the thing I really want to show you guys, what I believe is going to make finding the ideal property a lot easier to do, is this property list we have displayed here on the page. This takes the place of what we used to do previously with Google Sheets, but of course now it can conform to any browser window, which hopefully means there will be far fewer phone calls where we need to explain to people they have to scroll to the right. Whatever the case, this sheet will display the most important information from reference number to property status to the location with clickable view on map function, the legal description of unit, block, and lot for those who like to shop for the land that way, as well as acres, price, and a Learn More button, which when clicked will take you to that specific listing page where you can read more about that property and ultimately purchase it. And as with the other features on this page, the list of properties will be updated in real time as old ones sell and new ones are added. And for those of you who preferred the Google Sheets feature and like to know what we've sold previously in this region, you can come up here and click the Full Listing Details button to see that, as well as the long history of properties we have bought and sold in this area. Now, I should have you guys know we whittled down some of the information fields on this table of information. It won't have notations about power and roads or available financing anymore, but it will be a lot easier to open these up in separate windows and compare and contrast the listings that way. Finally, guys, the rest of this page works similar to the property-specific listing pages, but we will have this subdivision FAQ here with drop-down questions and answers about the region, as we have done in the past, along with the photo gallery of all the images we have from around the entire region that these properties are located in. Next up, I want to take you guys through what we're calling the utility pages. These are the information pages meant to educate people about every part of the buying process. And I specifically want to highlight these because here at Hemingway Land, we pride ourselves on information and transparency, and we do this not only because I am so anal about details, but because these are big purchases. Even the inexpensive properties that we sell on our site are still at least $1,000+. So we want our buyers to know as much about the property and the process as possible. So let me take you through these one at a time. First off, we've got the new and improved FAQ with even more of the common questions we receive and even more of the super detailed answers. And the nice thing about this page now is that we've broken all the questions down into topics. First, you've got property-specific questions, zoning and building questions, scouting questions, purchasing questions, financing questions, refund questions, and finally all the rest in miscellaneous questions. And for those of you who are too lazy to scroll, you'll be glad to know you can click any one of these topics and the page will automatically transport you there. Whatever the case, guys, we really did expand on a lot of these. In my time talking with callers and buyers, it's basically the same 50 questions over and over. And so it's unlikely you're going to ask us something we haven't been asked before. And so this page is an excellent resource for anyone who's read a listing page and has further questions. Moving on, the next utility page on the drop-down here is the Buying From Us page. Here on this page, we go through the 3 basic ways you can purchase a property from us, those being paying us directly through the website, closing through title and escrow, or financing with down payment plus monthly payment. And on each of these, we've got an explanation of how that process works, as well as answers to some of the common questions we get about each of these. Next up, for those electing to close through title and escrow, we've got this, again, very detailed question and answer page that goes into more specifics about that process, again, taking the time to address all the common questions and concerns we hear from our buyers. Next up, we've got our financing page with a list of potential sources of financing for properties. Of course, we here at Hemingway Land cannot always afford to offer financing on properties. Most of the time, we need to sell these things for the full cash price. But there are a lot of online lenders, a lot of online sources for potential money, some of which our buyers have been able to utilize in the past. Point being, we've updated and expanded this list to include some new funding sources, which may be a benefit to you as well. Next up, we've got our seller's disclosure page. Of course, many people who stumble upon our site for the first time mistake us for realtors. They mistake us as a company listing properties that other people own, when in fact, everything for sale on our site are properties that we have taken title on and which we are selling ourselves. Point being, as we are the owner-seller, this is a valuable page for helping people understand the guarantees that we make to our buyers. Finally, guys, over here, we've got this page of our site entitled Selling to Us. This is something that existed on the previous site, but was very bare bones and honestly had not been updated in a number of years. This new page, however, has not only been updated to explain the 2 methods we use to purchase and take title on a property, providing some helpful drop-downs with common questions and answers, but also has this form you can fill out if you are interested in selling a property to us. We created this one because as time goes on, we get more and more people emailing us with properties they'd like to sell. They see that we buy in these regions, and they want to know if we'd be interested in buying their land. Previously, this used to lead to tedious email exchanges where we had to collect the relevant information. Now, however, we will be able to direct sellers to this form, which they can fill out and submit their properties here directly to our acquisitions team. And for the record, guys, if you or anyone you know is interested in selling a property, you'll be glad to know we are not just buying in the 5 states we currently list in, but in all regions of the country, particularly as we look to expand our inventory into other states. Next up, I had skipped over this earlier when I was discussing the home page, but we've got these testimonial blocks scattered throughout the new site with, well, yes, testimonials from past customers. Of course, adding greater legitimacy to the site and to our business was a major goal of the redesign project. And so over the past few months, we reached out to a lot of our repeat buyers and asked them to submit a story that detailed their experience doing business with us. And of course, on each of these testimonial blocks, you can scan through a number of endorsements past buyers have made about us, read their words, hear their stories, etc. And I will confess, guys, it is my plan to do an expanded version of this in the next year or so with video testimonials. Landio actually does this, and believe it or not, to give you a sense of how long I have been planning this website, it was actually my intention to do video testimonials before I saw Landio started doing them. And he's been doing that now for like at least 3 years, I want to say. So anyway, whatever the case, that'll come at some undetermined day in the future. But if you have bought land from us and developed in some way and would like to be profiled in a video like that, feel free to shoot us an email because we'd love to hear from you. Whatever the case, in the meantime, these testimonials will hopefully be an adequate substitute for those looking to understand better how people who have done business with us in the past felt about that experience. Finally, people, before we wrap up, do want to put in a plug for the design firm that handled this project, not just the website, but the entire rebranding, which includes our new logo, which I didn't even get to, this guy. We hired Murmur Creative out of Portland, Oregon. They do a lot of branding, packaging, website work, etc. You can look them up at murmurcreative.com and see their impressive portfolio of sites. They were a really great partner to have during the process for the past year, but specifically do want to thank Andrew and Mary, Chris and Tristan, Ivan and Caitlin, Connor with the impressive hair. This photo does not do him justice, and especially Danny. Danny, who came up with the idea for the redesigned Buy Now buttons. Everybody did great stuff, but Danny's my favorite because I love these new Buy Now buttons. In addition, guys, all the photography you see on the site comes from 6 years of getting properties photographed in numerous states. We've had a couple different photographers in Hawaii and Nevada, a really good guy in Colorado named Tyler, whose work you see in a couple places here. But our go-to guy in New Mexico, the guy who's been shooting properties for us since we started in 2017, is Jason. And it's mostly his work that you see displayed on the new site. He's been a real asset to the business all this time, not just with the photos he's produced, but with the detailed, very detailed notes he sent back from every property over the years. I wish I could find someone half as good or reliable as him for Arizona or other regions. Don't get me started. But really, trying to go through all his images and select the best header photo or the best photo for a testimonials block, it was a real Sophie's choice in many instances. And for as many great shots as you see being displayed on the site, there were easily 5 we didn't elect to use. So special thanks to him as well. With all that said, guys, there's still a lot to the new site which I didn't cover in today's video, so feel free to review it at your leisure. Leave some comments here on the YouTube. Let us know what you think. And yes, I'm fishing for compliments. And basically, just thanks for being with us all these years. We've sold a little over 1,700 properties at this point. We've got a lot of repeat buyers who've purchased 5 or 10 lots from us each, and they've really kept us going. And of course, with the new site, we're hoping to expand our list of offerings so as we can reach an even wider audience of people looking to own their horizon. See what I did there, people? I brought back the tagline from earlier. Anyway, thanks as always for watching, guys. Hope you like the new site, and we will see you back here in our next video.